hear the theme tune slowly fading away into the background, it's time for me to say hello, my spooky friends, and welcome to the Paranormal Tourists. It's episode 2, and if you missed episode 1, which was called Frankenstein's Lobster versus the Alien Big Cats, I'm sure you can find us out there on Cotswold Radio SoundCloud account. Also, if you did listen last week, you're possibly thinking I'm a completely different person as I have a different voice, but no, we were out last night as Frankenstein's Lobster doing a gig till the early hours of the morning in a haunted pub, and got told some stories about that, but we'll tell you those at a later date. But instead of that, we will get back to the show, and if it's your first time listening to the Paranormal Tourist, then let me explain. Each week, we give you tales of the supernatural, but more importantly, we talk about places that you can visit, hopefully for free, and also give you details about ghost hunts that you can go on, and spooky things to see and do throughout the Cotswolds, but also further afield. After all, we are the Paranormal Tourists. Last week, we talked about Prestbury and several burial mounds that you can go and explore, and a few people gave me lists of Prestbury spooks that we did not mention. Well, don't panic. We'll get round to those. However, if we only talked about Prestbury, then the show would be excluding the other 800 square miles of the Cotswolds and also be about 5 hours long. So this week, we'll try and cram in a few more tales and spread ourselves around a bit more. So coming up in this week's show, we have tales about Snows Hill Manor, Burford, Cirencester, a few others. So stick around and prepare to be scared. Now, let me get out my map of the Cotswolds and randomly drop my invisible pencil on it and pretend that I haven't already prepared the show with a bunch of stories. And where does the invisible pencil land? Oh, let me just drop that. Oh, there you are. You heard the pencil land. Oh, what a surprise. It's Snows Hill Manor. How remarkable and fortuitous that was the one I just mentioned. So I guess we need an intro song to get us into Snows Hill Manor, and we find some lyrics or a poem written by one of its previous owners, that being Charles Wade.
The fleeting hours speed on and on, till very soon a year has gone. Seems but as yesterday 'twas spring. Now soon the Christmas bells will ring, and very soon a year has gone. Yes, very soon a year has gone. Swift fled the sunny summer days, the garden decked with flowers ablaze, the autumn with its misty air and gleaming colors everywhere. And very soon a year has gone. Yes, very soon a year has gone. Now here is winter, frost and snow. How swift the fleeting seasons go. The fleeting hours speed on and on, till very soon a year has gone. And very soon the years have gone. Yes, very soon a year has gone.
That was a song that was based on the poem by Charles Paget Wade. a poet and owner of Snows Hill Manor, and I give us all a brief history of the place before we move on to the spook. And where better to go than get our history from the font of all questionable and dodgy facts that is Wikipedia. So it's Wikipedia time, and we need some spooky music and a spooky voice. I've proved my voice is not spooky enough, so I've asked a friend to provide me with the words this time.
Snows Hill Manor was given to Winchcombe Abbey in 821 by the King of Mercia. 264 years later, the village and manor were listed in the Domesday Book of 1086 as Snoresville, property of the Abbey of St. Mary of Winchcombe. The manor remained the property of the abbey until the dissolution of the monasteries in 1539, when it was confiscated by King Henry VIII, who included the manor in his dowry to his last queen, Catherine Parr, in 1543. The earliest surviving part of the manor, the ruins named and now known as Dragon, Nadir, Anne's, Music and Seraphim by Charles Paget Wade, was built around 1550, and is probable that this section of the manor was joined to a contemporaneous building to the south, which was later demolished. In the 1600s, the manor was again extended southwards and attic rooms added. In the early part of the 18th century, the house was owned by one William Sambach, who added extra rooms to the southwest corner in about 1720. He also added a new main door to the south front, which is now the main entrance to the house. After several further changes of owner, John Small of Clapham took over the property, being the first of a series of absentee landlords. For the next 150 years, the house was occupied by tenant farmers until its purchase in 1919 by Charles Paget Wade. Wade was an architect, an artist, craftsman, collector, poet, and heir to the family fortune. He restored the property, living in the small cottage in the garden, and using the manor house as a home for his collection of objects. By the time of his death, he had amassed over 22,000 objects, and he gave the property and its contents of this collection to the National Trust in 1951.
Thank you, Tony, for that, and more importantly, you will notice he said it was handed over to the National Trust. This means if you're a member of the National Trust, you can get all sort of offers and free entry to the place. If you go to nationaltrust.org.uk, you can find the place easily and see that the prices to get in range from free through to £16.50. The National Trust is a great thing to join if you can afford it, as it allows you free entry to their properties, most of which have reliable spooky tales and ghosts just wandering all over the place, who probably didn't pay to get in. If you've never been to Snows Hill, then you'll be surprised to know that it's near Broadway. No, I don't mean the theatre hub of the world, but the small town in the Cotswolds, which is a beautiful place to visit. If you don't know the area, everything around there is absolutely gorgeous. Snows Hill Manor is mostly a 16th century manor house that had extensive renovations and repairs done under this Charles Paget Wade. And unlike most repairs and renovations, he tried to keep it as it should be and used it to display his weird collection of items. It's rumoured that when they started repairs, a series of magical symbols and inscriptions were found in the building. Now, whenever you're talking about ghost hunting, as soon as you get the builders in, that's when the ghosties and spooks all start coming out. And a large crew of workmen was sleeping in the attic during these renovations, and on the first night of sleeping there, one of the workers said, "That's it, not staying again." They refused to sleep there again due to the spooks that he spotted on day one, or night one. Charles then did a bit of research, found that the villagers said the building was haunted by the monks who had lived there. Another tale that Charles found was that of a young woman and a clandestine marriage on the eve of St. Valentine's Day way back in 1604. There was once a 16-year-old orphaned heiress to the building and fortune that went by the name of Anne Parsons, and she was forcibly taken from her home by a 20-year-old servant by the name of Anthony Palmer. And some of his acquaintances helped along as well, so there's quite a few people involved with this crime, and she was taken to Snows Hill and married in the room above the Great Hall by the Vicar of Broadway. This marriage was then subsequently annulled and declared invalid by the Star Chamber, and this room is now said to be haunted by her unhappy ghost. Another room by the name of Zenith may be haunted by the victim of a violent death. There is supposed to have been a duel fought in this room, the loser of which seems to have not left this room. And there is a lane that runs past the manor, and ghostly presences and figures have been seen in this vicinity. So that's one you can actually get there for free. And some people seem to report they think that these figures are unhappy monks, or an unhappy monk who used to reside here and in some way was connected with Winchcombe Abbey. The manor's not the only haunted place in the area, as the village has hauntings, including the age-old favourites, haunted pubs. Yes, the former landlord of the Snows Hill Arms went by the name of Alistair Biles and resided in the pub from 1969 to 1979. He claims to have frequently seen apparitions in the upstairs areas of the building. And this was yet another one of those hooded monk ghosts, but sometimes it would make itself known as just a misty figure which would move through walls and closed doors. Now, for those of you who are new to the world of ghost hunting, it's thought that ghosts would travel, when you hear about ghosts travelling through walls and travelling through locked doors, the idea is that those walls or doors didn't exist when the ghost lived. So it's just walking through a route that it would have done had there been a doorway there. Those of you who are ghost hunters, you know all this, but we've got to remember, there's people who are coming to this for the first time ever. Now, they will also not know that spooks can be spotted in the daytime as well as in the evenings. So coming along when it's open is absolutely fine, or you may want to come later in the season to try and catch it in the autumn and winter and darker evenings, but do check the website for opening times. But it looks like it's open every day up until Halloween. Then through November, it's just at the weekends. But generally speaking, it's open between 11 a.m. and 4 p.m, with the Gardens Cafe and Shop open for longer. It's not an easy one to get to if you don't have a car, as its nearest bus stop is 2.5 miles away in Broadway. But if you like a walk, it's a beautiful part of the world. You know, it's a lovely place to walk around and to spend some hours rambling through the hills and dales. Right, well, let's move on to a place that is definitely a freebie, as we need to have at least one completely free place to go in every episode. And let's pull out the invisible pencil and drop it again onto, what's now an invisible Cotswold map. Now, the problem with invisible pencils is that they are often hard to find. Now, I know I put it down here somewhere. Right, so here we go. And dropping the pencil. There you are. You heard it. It must be real. I see it's time to rock, or at least go and see some rocks. No one is exactly sure how many rocks, but it is rocks. I'll explain this later. It's the Rollright Stones, which is not a bad Rolling Stones tribute act, but a lovely sight, paranormal Neolithic weirdness in the Cotswolds. Now let me find some suitably weird bit of music all about the legend of the Rollright Stones and some witches. Or one witch, anyway.
The king was walking out one day when a witch approached and blocked their way. The king dismissed the hag in vain, but evil soon cut short his reign. A premonition then was heard when the witch set out his fate in words. The words were curses all in rhyme that echoed throughout all of time. 7 long strides shalt thou take, and if long Compton thou canst see, a king of England thou shalt be, the king through all eternity. The king then said, stick, stone and bone, as king of England I shall be known. He left the witch all on her own, this unkind soul with heart of stone. The king who had a heart of stone. The king dismissed this woman's words, unheeded curses left unheard, and set out on his weary way, not conscious of the things she'd say.
But kings should heed the words of all, for they can die and they can fall. The rich have power, that is true, but all end up like me and you.
7 long strides shalt thou take, and if long Compton thou canst see, a king of England thou shalt be, the king through all eternity. The king then said, stick, stone and bone, as king of England I shall be known. He left the witch all on her own, this unkind
now a king no more. A witch's word you don't ignore. Our kings that once were free to roam will turn into a lonely stone.
7 long strides shalt thou take, and if long Compton thou canst see, a king of England thou shalt be, the king through all eternity. The king then said, stick, stone and bone, as king of England I shall be known. He left the witch all on her own, this unkind soul with heart of stone, the king who had a heart of stone. The king remains all on his own. His army also turned to stone, and whispering knights plot in a field, because the king refused to yield. 7 long strides shalt thou take, and if long Compton thou canst see, a king of England thou shalt be, the king through all eternity. The king then said, stick, stone and bone, as king of England I shall be known. He left the witch all on her own, this unkind soul with heart of stone, the king who had a heart of stone.
There we have the story of the Rollright Stones. Now, this is also a freebie paranormal spot that you can visit, and the legend has it that a king and his army, who were marching over the Cotswolds, came across this witch who challenged the king, saying, 7 long strides shalt thou take, and if long Compton thou canst see, king of England thou shalt be. On his 7th stride, a mound rose up, obscuring the view. And if you were trying to do this whilst you're there, that's the big hill that's in the way. And the witch turned them all to stone. The king has become the King's Stone. His army, the king's men, and his knights, the Whispering Knights. And the witch became an elder tree, supposedly still in the hedge. And if it's cut, the spell will be broken, the stones will all come back to life. So that stone circle is going to turn back into an army. So be very careful if you do this. The chorus of the song is actually slightly different to the original poem that the legend is based on. So let's get our friend Tony back to recite the actual original for us.
7 long strides shalt thou take, and if long Compton thou shalt see, king of England thou shalt be. Stick, stock, stone, as king of England I shall be known. As long Compton thou canst not see, king of England thou shalt not be. Rise up, stick, and stand still, a stone, for king of England thou shalt be none. Thou and thy men hoar stone shall be, and I myself an eldern tree.
Thank you once more, Tony. So if you go to the site, you're going to see these stones, weirdly either side of the road. And I'll read the entrance fee and requirements from their website. So let's have a look. Visiting the stones. Opening hours. The stones are normally open to the public daily, all the year round, including being available to nighttime stargazers. Extremely rarely the site is closed for ticketed events or some overriding public interest safety risks. It really is a rare event when they've had to close it, partly because it's actually really, really easy to get to. You just go through a little tiny gate, or even you could theoretically jump through a hedge or over a fence, so it's very difficult for them to have ticketed events there. The entry fees are £2 for adults and £1 for children aged 7 to 16. The Rollright Trust receives no public funding, and this is our main source of income to look after the site. You can pay your admission fee online in advance, or by logging into this facility via a QR code on their site, or in daylight hours by cash using the honesty box at the entrance to the stone circle, or by paying the warden if on duty. That happens, generally speaking, on some very busy weekends where they've got some people there to look after the place. Right, parking. There's 2 small lay-bys on the main road, which are suitable for about a dozen cars. At busy times, these may be full, so please park carefully, remembering the road is often busy with traffic and HGVs. So I've parked there, and quite often there's a lot of cars because there's people visiting this site. It's not a dedicated car park. It's a bit of a lay-by. So try and go there either late at night or in the daytime, but avoid Saturdays, Sundays, that kind of thing. Do not leave valuable items in your vehicle. Stow them in your boot so they can't be seen. Why that's on the website, that's just common knowledge. And access for wheelchair and users and pushchairs. So this bit's important. The stones are close to a road, are a reasonably level, even ground with paths and gateways suitable for wheelchairs, disability scooters and children's pushchairs. Now, I've been there. I'd slightly disagree with that. But if you're turning up in a wheelchair thinking, oh, it's all paved and I can get round, it's not, all right? So if it's been raining, this is mud you're going across, right? So to bear that in mind. Right, this is technically a freebie venue, as you can just walk in. However, if you can pay, then please do leave them some money. It needs all the money it can get for the upkeep of the place. And the great thing is that this is a site that can be accessed at night time. And it's a great place to go on a clear, warm evening for stargazing as well. I'm pretty sure that we can all assume that the legend is gibberish. Even the most believing paranormal fan out there is going to know this is a legend, and we can prove this firstly by, well, obviously it's just not true, that's why we can prove it, but also because all the sections of this site come from different time periods. So the Kingstone, for example, is about 1500 years later than the Whispering Nights, the site dating from around about 3000 BC to 1500 BC. So this witch stuck around for quite a few years, I guess. The site was in continuous use for quite a while after that as an early Saxon cemetery, and that was found there, which dated from around about 700 AD. If we want to, we can go back even further, as the stones first saw light of day during the Jurassic period. And the stones sit in a lovely bit of parkland, meaning technically you are currently in Jurassic Park. So please look out for dinosaurs. It was a 33-metre wide circle when it was constructed and thought to contain about 500 stones in the original formation. That number now is less, but nobody knows exactly how many. As the legend is, no one can actually count them. Let me find what their website says about this legend. And Tony, we're asking a lot of you this week, but can you read it for us?
Legend has it that it is impossible to count the king's men. It is said that the man will never live who shall count the stones 3 times and find the number the same each time. It is also said that anyone who thrice counts the same number will have their heart's desire fulfilled. It is a lot harder than you might expect. A baker swore he would count them, and to prove it, he baked a number of loaves and placed one on each of the stones. But each time he tried to collect them up, some of the loaves were missing, spirited away either by the devil or by fairies.
The legends are always evolving stories, and I've heard versions of this where the witch is apparently Mother Shipton, which we're going to end up doing an episode with at some point, I'm sure, which then in turn adds another 1,000 years to the timeline of this story. And also that this king wanted to become the first king of a united England and create the United Kingdom of Great Britain, a thing that didn't happen till about 3,000 to 4,000 years after the first stones were laid. Now, the trouble with the counting of the stones is that some of the stones have been removed and some have split. So you'll see people at this site on any given day trying to count them, then possibly arguing about if that stone is 2 stones or not, and some stones have been removed and were possibly 1 stone and have changed place. And there's another legend attached to the fact that stones have been removed in the past. And so back to their website. Tony, we got another bit for you to read out for us.
A local farmer supposedly took one of the largest stones to make a bridge over a stream. It took 24 horses to drag the stone down the hill, and a man was killed on the way. Eventually, they got the stone across the stream, but by the morning it had flipped over onto the bank. This happened each time they replaced it. Then the crops failed, so they decided to put the stone back. It only took 1 horse to drag it back up the hill. As with some Welsh standing stones, any passing carrier who chips bits off the king's stone will find the wheels of his cart become irrevocably locked.
Thank you once more, Tony. I do like getting Tony to read stuff, partly because I love the music that goes underneath it. I don't know where that comes from. He just opens his mouth and music appears and then he speaks. That in itself is weird and paranormal. But what makes this place weird and paranormal? Well, we'll get onto the spook spotting bit in a bit. But there are some interesting scientific bits to do with this circle, as a scientific study of the area back in the 80s revealed at least 4 weird magnetic anomalies within the circle. So if you're doing weird paranormal experiments, bring magnets, compasses, EMF meters and so on, and make it look like you know what you're doing. In fact, wear a long white lab coat and goggles and really freak some people out. In fact, use hazmat suits. That'll really scare people. If you believe in ley lines, there is supposedly a ley line that goes right through the middle of this one as well. And as the legend has it, these strange earth powers might bring the knights back to life at night time when they wake up and walk down to the stream to have a drink. I might tell you that unless you're taking some illegal mind-altering substances, then I don't put much hope in that spooky thing happening at all. If you can't find all the stone formations, then find the hole in the nearby formation in one of the stones, and you'll see the Whispering Knights. If you stand on the one side of the stone, look through the hole, you'll see the Whispering Knights in the distance. So good luck with that one. And if you can't work out what I'm saying, then just follow the signs that point to them instead. If you are new to this country, then welcome. Whether you're a tourist, whether you've flown in for an afternoon, that's kind of weird, whether you've decided to up sticks and come and live here forever and evermore, if you're a refugee, if you're an immigrant to this country, hello and welcome. It's lovely to see you here. But one thing you might not know about Britain is that there are lots of druids and witches. And they're still here. They're wandering around, and I say this as a bit of a word of warning, as you might plan to come along at night time to the stone circles and sit in this lovely stone circle and experience an evening of stargazing. And in reality, a coven of naked witches turn up and run around dancing around you and turn you into a frog or something weird like that. There are stories of witches here going way back. And one story tells of the murder of an 80-year-old woman from Long Compton who was accused of being a witch and, because of it, was murdered. Long Compton is only about a mile from the stone circle, and there's a tradition of witchcraft taking place in the area, and one alleged incident occurred not that long ago. It's 1875, when a man called James Haywood believed he had been bewitched by an old woman known as Mistress Tennant and murdered her. It seems that Mistress Tennant kept or had kept toads in her garden, or they're just wildly jumping around, and that was seen as evidence by him of her being a witch. So he was detained and confessed to the crime, declaring he knew of 16 other witches in the Long Compton area, and he wanted to kill them all. So perhaps there was an outbreak of toads somewhere, so please be careful if you're living next to somebody that's an insane killer and you've got toads wandering around. At that time, one of the tests to determine if someone was a witch was to weigh their heart against the Bible, and that was still legal at that point, and the defendant asked that he might be judged in this way. Whether this was done or not is not told to us throughout history, but Haywood was found to be insane and went to prison in Warwick. In jail, Haywood steadfastly refused all food and water, believing that he was bewitched, and gradually died. Some think he may have been influenced by a traditional local saying, and that saying is, "There are enough witches in Long Compton to draw a wagon load of hay up Long Compton Hill." However, if they are witches, surely one decent witch could do that using some weird magic spell that could move wagons. And I know a witch friend of mine, as I said, there are witches still around today, and she could easily do that because she's got a tow bar on her car, so she could just hitch it to the back and drive it up the hill. Well, I still haven't mentioned spooks and ghosts, so I don't think it will surprise you to know that this site has had a fair share of spooks being spotted. There are tales of processions of hooded figures, which in reality might actually be the modern-day witches doing rituals and druids popping along for a picnic, as well as shadowy figures walking around the site. And be careful, as there are stories about alien big cats. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, then go back and listen to last week's show, and I know we will talk about ABCs more in the future. Also, a strange feeling of being watched is very often reported by people, especially when stood in the middle of the stone circle. Although, if you are there late at night and a bunch of witches want you to disappear, they might be staring at you through the bushes, cursing your name and hoping you disappear very quickly. One scientific explanation that might be something to do with the feeling of being watched is that there's strange electromagnetical anomalies that can happen within that circle, and that can affect the way your brain works and can create strange sensations and feelings within you. So perhaps it's more to do with the sort of magnetic waves going through your body that make you think there's witches staring at me through the woods. We've had a lot of talk of witches. Let's have a song about a witch.
She stirs the cauldron wishing ill. Her shadow dances on the hill. Whispers rise, the air is cold. Her evil secrets left untold. They say her words of fear can scare. Her laughter rides the midnight air. The witch who lives out on the hill, oh, she sings, she dances late at night. Devils dance and won't stay still until the morning breaks its light. The world can bend to evil wills. All eyes fall on the witch up on the hill. Her hands are cracked, her heart is stone. Her cauldron bubbles all alone. Foxes linger at her door, hungry for the tale she swore. They say her spells could light the sky or drown the moon if she should try. The witch who lives out on the hill, oh, she sings, she dances late at night. Devils dance and won't stay still until the morning breaks its light. The world can bend to evil wills. All eyes fall on the witch up on the hill. They say her words of fear can scare. Her laughter rides the midnight air. The witch who lives out on the hill, oh, she sings, she dances late at night. Devils dance and won't stay still until the morning breaks its light. The world can bend to evil wills. All eyes fall on the witch up on the hill.
Now we have a folk song about witches to finish off our folklore tales about the Rollright Stones. There's hundreds of stories about the place, and we could dedicate an entire episode just to this, but I think that's given you a decent taster out there. Look it up online. There's a whole bunch more of various rumours and witch stories and ghost stories and so on. If you do head out there and experience anything paranormal, then please get in contact with the show and we can tell everybody. You can always email the paranormaltourists@hotmail.com. That's paranormaltourists@hotmail.com. And if we get updates from you, we'll read them out on the show. And that email, paranormaltourists@hotmail.com, is also the best way to get in contact. And a few people have with some stories. I'm not going to read them out this week, sorry, but they've given us some few interesting leads to follow up about some venues that myself and the rest of the Paranormal Tourist team are going to head out and investigate. So hopefully we'll hear about those in a future show. Remember, we will be doing some actual investigations to get recorded and broadcast on the show. So if there's anywhere out there, in the Cotswolds ideally, you'd like us to go and check out, then please do tell us. Well then, we are about 2/3 throughout the show, so let's find something touristy to go and do. And no, I've misplaced my invisible pencil to drop onto my invisible map. So let's find a map first. Here we go, quick sound effect. There we go, there's the map. There we go, and drop something else. How about, yes, this, my trusty invisible novelty bottle opener from the Cotswold Wildlife Park. Now, where is this going to land? Well, we're going to need a bigger thing to drop, so let's use a bigger map. Right, we need a bigger invisible map. Therefore, I needed a bigger invisible map sound effect. Now we'll unroll that, and here we go. Oh, what a coincidence! It's landed with half of it on the Cotswold Wildlife Park and also the other half on Burford. Oh, just like we mentioned at the start of the show. So, in case you hadn't realised, they are both reasonably close to each other, and no, my novelty invisible bottle opener is not snapped into and landed in both places. Right, well, I'm going to start with the Cotswold Wildlife Park. Partly as we just had a long section about a freebie place to go to and to investigate, so let's have a paid for one. More importantly for me, anyway, is the fact that I get to publicise a book that I wrote called Paranormal Oxford, and it's in the section, the Oxfordshire outside of Oxford bit, in the back of the book. And yes, I know that Oxford is not in the Cotswold Hills. However, parts of Oxfordshire are, and Burford is one of them, and we're going to end up in Burford, which isn't far from the park. Thankfully, it's not too long a drive from here in the studio, so from Northleach, we're going to follow the A40 eastward, and the next major town we hit is Burford. But we'll ignore that for a minute, and instead of turning left to go to my favourite sweet shop in Burford, we're going to turn right and head towards Lechlade, and halfway down this road we find an amazing zoological park and gardens called the Cotswold Wildlife Park. Now, I forgot to send the details to Tony to read out, so instead I've got another actor colleague called Tom, who's going to be reading out the details from their website for us. And no, it's not Tom Jordan, the other host of the Paranormal Tourist. So it's a different Tom. So let's get this tourist details from other Tom, that's what I'm going to call it from now on, other Tom. So this is from the park's website.
Ticket prices are between £3 and £19. Tickets are cheaper if you book them online from cotswoldwildlifepark.co.uk. Children must be accompanied by an adult at all times, registered blind or admitted free of charge, and all accompanying visitors pay normal admission prices. Children aged 0 to 2 are free. We are open throughout most of the year and have plenty of free parking. Summertime, 10 o'clock till 6 o'clock with last admissions at 4 p.m. Winter hours are 10 o'clock till 4 p.m. with the last admission at 3 p.m. Cotswold Wildlife Park is open daily from 10 a.m. until 4. Our Madagascar exhibit closes at 3 in winter and 3:30 in summer. This is to ensure the inhabitants of this enclosure have plenty of time to settle for the evening. Please note our winter opening times change from Monday the 5th of January 2026. And Cotswold Wildlife Park will remain closed on weekdays only from 5th of January until 5th of February, reopening on Friday the 6th of February 2026, except for weekends, when the park will be open from 10 until 4, or dusk, whichever is earlier, with last admission being at 3 p.m. This is to allow for essential maintenance to be carried out. How long should you allow for your visit? Allow at least 4 hours. With their amazingly diverse collection of species and 160 acres of beautiful parkland, there's a lot to pack in.
Now, annoyingly, we can't actually investigate much at the park, as the ghosts tend to hang around the central building and the living quarters. However, we can get into sections of that building. It's a beautiful, gorgeous, fantastic Gothic-looking thing, and poltergeist activity has occurred in there. If you look at that building, you'd be surprised if it wasn't haunted. Right, and this is the reason that we have this next song, in fact, as it's based on a story that I was told several years ago about a rocking horse that was kept in the old building and something that happened to a previous member of staff.
The day was gone and the nighttime sound echoed all around. The house was still with no one home, not a person to be found. He walked through halls and empty rooms, and then the noises came, and the tale he told of spirits old meant he never was the same.
The misty souls would play each night, each time the people go.
The lost, forgotten spirit folk would start their evening show.
The tapping feet would start to walk across the wooden floors.
The noises scare and start again behind these haunted doors. The floorboards creak, the shutters move, they rattle in their frames. The spirits play and wait for you to stop and call their name.
The misty souls would play each night, each time the people go.
The lost, forgotten spirit folk would start their evening show.
The tapping feet would start to walk across the wooden floors.
The noises scare and start again behind these haunted doors. He heard a noise, a thumping sound, then opened up the door. And there he saw a rocking horse that stood so still before. But now it rocked, went back and forth, with no one by its side, except a misty, childlike form that smiled with eyes so wide.
The misty child who loved her horse would rock it every night.
This lost, forgotten spirit child who gave us all a fright.
The rocking horse would start to move across the wooden floors.
The noises scare and start again as we lock the haunted doors.
Yes, a rocking horse has even been seen to move of its own accord, as if someone was sat on it rocking it backwards and forwards. These witnesses have also seen small misty figures. So it wasn't necessarily a child like it is in the song that you heard there, but a misty figure that's been stood there, and this has happened. They've also seen that figure in other parts of the building as well, including sections of the building that are open to the public. So wander about if you can get into there. Staff members have found glasses on the floor in the bar in the morning when they've not been there the night before, and yet none of them were broken. One member of staff tried to clean up the glasses, and as they did this, other glasses started to move and fly around the room. So she did what most people do in that situation and sensibly ran away. They've got some Halloween events lined up, and there is apparently a capybara at the park called Frankenstein, as it was born on a previous Halloween. Well, I'm going to do some shameless plugging again, and this is the sound of a book. Look at that. Real paper there. It's not on a screen or anything. And that book is written by me. It's called Paranormal Oxford. It's published by Amberley Publishing. You can get it off of their website. You can get it off of eBay, but bizarrely on eBay it costs more. So we're talking about Burford. Now Burford has got one of my favourite sweet shops in it. So if you park in Burford, halfway down the hill, down in the main, pretty much the only shopping road in Burford, you'll find a sweet shop, and it's fantastic. Hopefully they'll give me some freebies if they've listened to this. Here we go. This is page 94 of Paranormal Oxford by myself, Ross Andrews, published by Amberley, and it's about Burford Priory and the Old Rectory. A trio of terror. One of my favourite haunted buildings in the world has to be St Breville's Castle in the Forest of Dean in Gloucestershire, and the reason is because of the multitude of ghosts and hauntings that go on every week in that building. Places like that are a ghost hunter's dream. You have to remember that most of the time I turn up somewhere because of a story about a ghost that occasionally turns up every so often in a year at totally random points and to random people, so a venue that offers me 3 times as many chances of seeing a ghost is always a good one. We have yet another one of our phantom monks haunting this Burford Priory and Old Rectory. It may not be an actual monk, just a figure that is not completely human-shaped, causing what looks like a flowing gown or cape effect. Here, however, we are in an old rectory and priory, so the monk explanation may have some validity. The second interesting phenomena to investigate here is the sound of the bells. There is apparently an unearthly sounding bell noise that happens around 2 a.m. These stories that have particular dates and times associated with them I find fascinating due to the fact that it requires the ghost to have a working knowledge of whether the clocks have gone backwards or forwards at all. And I wonder if at various times of the year the ghost rings the bell only to find out it's actually 3 a.m. or 1 a.m. and they're a day out. The bell is sometimes replaced or accompanied by monastic chanting, and both sounds are reported down through the years from various well thought of and reliable sources. We have another ghost here that may be slightly dangerous, as this one is armed. He carries a rifle and is possibly the spirit of a dead gamekeeper. He's been seen patrolling the area, so to possible ghost hunters looking for this one, why not try carrying a dead pheasant with you and see what happens? I do offer this possible experiment with a word of warning. Carrying dead meat with you may also attract ABCs. The big cats, and there's one very nearby in Banbury that's been reported very often. Let's hope the gamekeeper's ghost is a good shot and can bag himself a panther. There you go. That's an excerpt from a book that I wrote ages ago about Paranormal Oxford. See if you can get hold of a copy. It's not the easiest one to track down. You can get it on eBay, but they're charging hundreds of pounds, and I'm pretty sure you can get it from Amberley Publishers for $12.99 or somewhere around about that. Let me tell you about the most famous ghosts in Burford. That is Sir Lawrence Tanfield and his wife, and they were 17th century aristocrats who went and purchased Burford Priory back in 1617, and it said they were hated so much by the local population because of their cruelty, particularly that they showed to their tenants, that they were burned in effigy on the anniversary of Lord Tanfield's death for almost 200 years after that date. Now, Lord Tanfield's second wife, Lady Elizabeth Tanfield, was particularly notorious for pretty much hating the townsfolk, having apparently declared, and this is theoretically a quote, I don't think we have a recording from back there to find out whether it's true or not, and she said that she would like to grind the people of Burford to powder beneath her chariot's wheels. Well, the ghosts of Lord and Lady Tanfield are reported to have been seen driving around the town in a ghostly and fiery coach and horses, and in some of these reports, that coach and horses is driving over the roofs of the buildings, which therefore somehow goes to verify her statement of grinding the people of Burford to powder beneath her chariot wheels. Now, the supernatural antics of Lord and Lady Tanfield eventually annoyed everybody there so much, and so everybody was seeing this constantly, that they got the church involved, and they were charged with laying with the ghost, or an exorcism, if you don't know what that means. This was achieved by summoning Lady Tanfield's spirit to Burford Church, where it was corked up in a bottle. I don't know how big that bottle is, or how tiny Lady Tanfield was, but the bottle was then hidden under the first arch of Burford Bridge. And legend tells us that if the river dries up and the bottle is exposed, the ghostly pair are going to come back and carry on their mischief. Now you've heard the stories. If you want to see a ghost, I suppose go and dig up a bottle and let Lord and Lady Tanfield reign through the burning skies yet again. So we got a song here that tells us all about that, and it's actually called The Ballad of Lord and Lady Tanfield.
In 1617, when evil came to town, a pair of ghouls who ruled with fear and censorship stuck around. They were so cruel, so callous too, and hated by all men. But late at night you hear them ride out in the streets again. Lord and Lady Tenterfield, they ride in fire and flame. No other ghost more evil by any other name. They lived in life as creatures of rage and abject hate, forever burning down in hell their burning, raging fate. The ghosts of Lord and Lady are seen here late at night. They drive their ghostly carriage. This terrifying sight is made much worse for people who see it in the sky. It rides across the rooftops as evil's flying by. Lord and Lady Tenfield, they ride in fire and flame. No other ghost more evil by any other name. They lived in life as creatures of rage and abject hate, forever burning down in hell their burning, raging fate. Lady Tanfield's words echo down through many years. Their damning ancient speech follow at her flaming heels. She said that she would like to grind the people into dust beneath her wheels of her chariot. So haunt the town she must. Lord and Lady Tenfield, they ride in fire and flame. No other ghost more evil by any other name. They lived in life as creatures of rage and abject hate, forever burning down in hell their burning, raging fate. The legend tells us all church were called upon to rid the town of spirits and hope they would be gone. They sealed the spirits in a jar 'neath the bridge down in the soil. But if the river dries itself, their prison plans are foiled. Lord and Lady Tenfield will ride and fire again. No other ghost more evil by any other name. They lived in life as creatures of rage and abject hate, forever burning down in hell, their burning, raging fate.
Well, that's all we've got time for, so I'm going to speak quickly. If you've got any stories you want to tell us about, email myself at paranormaltourists@hotmail.com. Paranormaltourists@hotmail.com. Tell us about all your Cotswold spooks and any places you want us to visit. So we'll see you all next week, and until then, I can see the band coming in, ready to play the theme tune. Here they are, Frankenstein's Love's there. Take it away. We'll see you all next week. Goodbye.